Hi, hello. In this video, we're going to look at the third person singular in the present tense and how we have to add an S or use does when we make sentences. So let's go ahead and look at some basic sentences. And we're going to look at sentences as questions, as positive statements, sometimes called affirmative, and negative statements. So usually when you talk about, daily things or things that happen again and again, maybe habits or things like that, we just have to add the verb and we don't have to change anything. For example, we'd say, where do you live? Or what do you do for a living? Or, excuse me here, or what do we need? When do we need to be there? Excuse me. But when we are talking about the third person singular, and basically that's just he, she, or it, then we have to add S. So for example, for a question, you would say, for she, you would say, where does she live? Or here we would say, what does he do for a living? Or here, when does it need to be there? So notice the difference. When do you need to be there? When does it need to be there? And here we have positive statements. So for example, I live in California. She lives in California. So we have to add the S. And we often link it, lives in, to the word that's right next to it. So I don't think it's going to let me highlight just the S. But notice it links, lives in New York. She lives in New York. So if you want to have good English pronunciation, we have to say the S and then often link it to the next word. So here we have teaches English. He teaches English overseas. Or here, it needs to be there ASAP. So here again, we have to add the S. Now, if it's a negative, you do not add the S to the end of the verb, but you put does not in front of it. So for example, she does not live in England. Now let's compare that to I do not live in Canada. So I do not live in Canada. She does not live in England. So if it's third person singular, he, she, or it, you have to use does. Now we often contract that. For example, we might say, she doesn't live in England. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But here's a couple more examples. For example, they do not work near here versus she does not work alone. So again, we use does. And here we have, we do not need to be there until 6 versus it does not need to be here today. Now often what we do is we contract it. So does not becomes doesn't. So doesn't is quite common. So she doesn't live in New York. She does not live in New York. Either one is okay. For example, she does not work alone. You could say she doesn't work alone, or it doesn't need to be there. All right, so here's your challenge. Can you make some sentences using this basic information? So for example, here we have where father work. And that's kind of like when you hear English, we call it broken English. Sometimes people just say the basic words and they don't say all the little words they need. So we want to practice that. So here, where father work, we would say, where does your father work? And he work bank should be, he works in a bank. And he not like job would be, he does not like his job. So I'm going to go ahead and make these sentences. I'm going to pull these up here. And before I type the answer, can you think of what it's going to be? So here, first one we have when mother get home. That should be when does your, if I can type that right, when does your mother get home? And she get home Monday. So using third person singular, she gets home on Monday. And when we talk about future plans, sometimes we use the present simple tense here. And she not get home on Monday. Oh, so that would be she does not get home until Monday. Notice she does not get home until Monday. She gets home on Monday. Same meaning. All right, let's look at the next one. Where brother eat lunch? Okay, so to make that a good sentence that's grammatically correct with good pronunciation, that would be, where does your brother eat lunch? So you think, oh, he eat lunch cafeteria? So that would be he eats lunch in the cafeteria. And you could say he eats lunch at the cafeteria. That would be okay. Now how about he not take own lunch? So actually I should say maybe change that to bring. I'm going to change that one to bring. So he does not bring his own lunch. He doesn't bring his own lunch. Okay, next we have what language friends speak. To make a nice sentence, you would say, what language does your friend speak? And to answer, with the information we have, he speaks Japanese. And for the other information, he does not speak Thai. Now we could, of course, say, if we want to contract it, we could say he doesn't speak Thai. And we got just one more. So next we have, I can get down here, there we go. When weather get hot. So to make a question, we would say, when does the weather get hot? When does the weather get hot? And you could answer, it gets hot in summer. And for the negative, we could say, it does not get hot in winter. And we could contract that. We could say it doesn't. It doesn't get hot in winter. And that's it. That's a quick review of how you use the third person singular and how you have to add s or does when you make your sentences. Thanks.